We now recorded. Awesome. Okay, so number one on our agenda is going to approve the minutes for last meeting. Does anybody have any queries about those, or is anyone happy to move?
I'm happy to move, Danielle.
David McKillop, the second.
Thanks, David. Anyone abstaining or against? Okay, so 11, I think we have 12 minutes, including me. Okay, so next up on the agenda, we have file reconciliation status update. Who's going to do that? Redstone.
Yeah, I can do that one. Oh, I can do it. Yeah, if you just want to hit the block vote there. Yeah, so that was a block vote that finished on the 10th of October. And so yep, number of issues there which are loading. And that's just the 5. And yep, and that was approved. 10 and 1 abstention, so I think that is all good.
That's the only.
That's all there is to say.
That's all there is. Okay.
No, actually, I think there's one more thing to say is the total of all the issues left to go through reconciliation is on the agenda for this meeting. There's no other ones. I don't know if we'll get through it all, but this is like the full set to go.
You can see the end.
See if we can get that.
Well done.
Right, so let's move on to number 3 then. Ballot reconciliation. Okay, so common issues, why are they crossed out?
Oh, that's because I think resolutions have been added, so that's just what it does. Yeah.
All right, so first up, diagnostic result allows for pathology result part.
Yeah. So these are common ones, Jane, that are covering multiple specs and have an impact. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Andy, did you want to speak to this, or did you want me to speak to it? I know we've kind of run through it a bit in the AU Core TDG. I'm okay with either way.
I'm happy for you too.
All right. So this rose in the AU Core spec. AU Core has a diagnostic result profile that is derived from AU Base. Now, if you can click on that link, Jane, and that'll take us to the AU Core profile. And then if you scroll down to the profile view and then open up a new tab to the AU Base one. Right, so it's really starting from AU Base. If we scroll down to, there's a part called Member Of, an element there. And what was designed in AU Base was to say that even though this observation itself isn't categorized as imaging or pathology, a study or a group or a panel might have individual tests that are categorized as pathology or imaging. So that's why the member of allows any 3 of those profiles. In AU Core, we derived off this and then made all the AU-based profiles AU Core. So if you can just pop back to the AU Core view, Jane. When we were doing R1 though, we ended up scoping out diagnostic imaging result in AU Core. So looking at the member of the AU Core diagnostic result, that should still have 3 options. But since we profiled out of AU Core, sorry, we put it out of scope working through diagnostic imaging result, it should have just gone back to AU Base, but we just deleted it which means it's now an inconsistency with AU base. So Andy's raised the issue to ask about why AU Core is inconsistent, really, with AU base and is making that further constraint. And on investigation, it's just a mistake. It should say AU base diagnostic imaging result. So the proposed disposition is to, if you look at the JIRA, is to update the AU Core profile to reference the AU-based diagnostic imaging result, making AU-base and AU Core consistent, and to retain what's in AU-base, no change. This would then flow into patient summary. So this affects 3 specs because 3 specifications use that kind of chain of profiling from base to core to patient summary. Anything you wanted to add there, Andy?
No, but it sounds like a triple word score to me.
All right. Any questions that people have about, I guess, the nature of the issue or any concerns about the proposed disposition?
No, sounds like good fixing up an issue well picked up.
Okay. All right. So if there's no further comments, do we need to vote separately on this one?
I'm happy to motion the disposition to retain AU base and to add into the AU Core profile in HAS member the AU base diagnostic imaging result reference as what's on screen, basically. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a second?
I'm happy to second it.
Don't need to do a poll. I'll do a poll. Okay. Okay, thank you. I've got 77 affirmative. Motion passed. Okay, next one.
We call the numbers. What have we got?
Oh, sorry. So there was 7 in the poll, 7 of 7 affirmative. I'm not
I can see
sure
8.
why.
I can see 8 in the poll, and I have +1. I still got the window open.
Okay. Sorry, I
Yeah.
closed it.
Yeah, I can tell you it's 8 affirmative, no negative, no abstains, and 1 affirmative in the chat.
That's 9 affirmative.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. I got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on then. So our next one up is guidance relationship to other IGs is not accurate. This is who's going to talk to this one? Stephen.
Right. Okay. We had some discussions, and I agreed to step up to lead the discussions based on the international protocols that I as also a FHIR International Patient Care Work Group co-chairs experience. So this issue actually has sort of like 2 matters sort of like attached to it. One is the content matter, and the other one is the procedural matter. So let's talk about the procedural matter first, and then we can come back to the content matters sort of like if necessary or so desired. From the procedural perspectives, the FHIR governance and social decision-making rules specify that if an issue that is being raised that is considered as an issue related to the previously resolved issues, then a set of procedures needs to follow. So number one is that members of the groups needs to be notified either through Zurich or through an email broadcast to consider whether or not there is merit to reopen the ticket as a result of the previously resolved ticket. So in this particular matter, for us to reconsider this issue that is being raised, then the due process needs to be followed. If we were to reopen it, that the members needs to be notified, and members needs to express sort of whether or not they agree to reopen the ticket. And the magic number to reach is 60% of the members or above to agree to reopen the ticket before we can come back to revisit it. So that's the procedural side, and we'll come back to the discussion on the procedures second. After that, and then from the content perspectives, for members to decide whether or not there is a need to reopen the previous resolved ticket, there needs to be sufficient evidences to identify that the previous disposition is inadequate in the sense that the issues wasn't satisfactorily addressed, and the voting at that time wasn't considered carefully as a result of the disposition recommendation. So I think in order to save members' time, I would like to hear about my suggestion. No, my suggestion is let's to hear as to there are significant material sort of issues that arise from the resolved tickets that it was not adequately addressed while it was sort of being agreed upon by the members that voted to support that. Bearing in mind that the changes that has happened as a result of the disposition of the previous ticket is that the diagrams that has evolved from the previous diagram is actually a conceptual diagram and not an architectural diagram. They are by no means sort of inferring any kind of architectural rigor, but only to express the objectives that this is a stack diagram in which sort of the AU-based profiles are derived from the HL7 international standards, and the AU core is derived from the AU base, and that the use case specific implementation guides actually can derive their profiles on all three of the bottom foundation layers of the stack. So I would like us to consider whether or not these kind of changes in address to the previous tickets are actually insufficient to the degree that it warrants the community to decide on reopening it. So, Andy, since you are the one who raised this ticket, so I'm kind of putting the question to you as to what your opinion is. Do you think that this should still go ahead to reopen the previous tickets in relation to this one that you raised, or are you considering the withdrawal of this ticket that has been raised?
Well, I actually find the diagram where the conceptual or architectural confusing, because I don't think when you look at it that there is any way to infer that, for instance, e-requesting can depend directly on AU base, for instance. And I don't think it actually. I think there's maybe better ways of expressing it if that's the desire. It's unclear to me what it's otherwise trying to express. I think you've got to search through a fair bit of text to understand that this is conceptual. It doesn't say it in the title of the figure. It doesn't say it in any text direct. I mean, I just go, it's a nice bright diagram. So you go straight to the diagram and you immediately see that, oh, look, HL7 AU requesting is built on AU Core. And I just don't think that's helpful. So I'll go with if there's a vote to say it's not to be revisited, that's fine. But I don't think you can hide. I don't think you can hide the issue by saying it's conceptual. And B, there is nothing directly related to that use of conceptual that's anywhere near the diagram. I mean, you just start looking at it. I don't think you will be able to see that word conceptual close by. And, it's just bad practice, to be honest.
So you would still consider this ticket should progress?
Yes, I would.
Landon, you have your hand up.
Sure. To me, like it is a good point that it's not mentioned it's conceptual, but to me, just glancing at it from an industry perspective or a developer, it sort of looks conceptual. So it's I don't know, that's how I would assume that industry would interpret it. So I'm kind of happy with this position as is. Thank you.
Thanks, Landon. I think, when I look at this diagram, I wouldn't interpret that as an architectural diagram. The only thing that I can draw from it is that it is a conceptual diagram. As a way forward, would you accept that the caption of this diagram be changed a bit to reflect the conceptual nature of the diagram? Would that address your issue?
Well, no, to be honest, no. I mean, look, I'll go with whatever the group says, but I think it's an issue that needs to be raised, because when people don't know a lot about AU Core or know about AUE requesting, how are they to interpret this? And if it's simply as Danielle kind of pointed out, it's categorization, then then that begs the question, well, why are we layering it in that case if it's just about categories? Conceptual architectures are equally as valid as platform architectures and technical architectures and all the rest of the myriad of architectures we can have. But when you look at this, I don't know how you could come to the conclusion that HL7 AUE requesting can actually directly base its work on, for instance, AU base.
Okay, Michael has his hand up. I would address your comment and then I'll go to Michael. So to borrow your comment previously about the ticket that was being raised about the patient apps in the e-requesting. Your comment is that it may not be entirely correct, but that's the best that we can come up with. So just to respond to what you're saying about this diagram, my comment is that it is not perfect, but it is probably fit for purpose, as Landon mentioned. So with that as a comment, I'll go to Michael and then Ruben.
I was just going to say, aren't we considering this a revisit? Isn't the process we go through here, we decide if we want to revisit it, and then if we are revisiting, what the changes we're going to look at doing? If that's the case, do we want to have the vote on the revisit first? And then if we do want to revisit, we can work through.
Yeah, I understand that. The reason why I mentioned it is that I'm hoping that if the explanation can satisfy Andy, we don't have to go through the process of reopening it. But if it doesn't, then yes, we will definitely go through the process of reopening it.
I think Andy's said he does want to revisit. Like the changes we've talked about aren't sufficient. He does want to revisit.
Okay.
So I think if we might be best to have a vote on that revisit, and then
that would be fine. Let's go to Ruben.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, so I guess I'm coming down on Andy's side, but from a different angle. I generally dislike this diagram for many reasons. First and foremost, it's incomplete. There are things like the FHIR extensions pack and HL7 terminology which aren't represented here. And those guidance points on the right, they're problematic. One could argue that AU Base is a platform spec. One could argue that all the specs at the top provide Australian realm definitions, which they do. And one could certainly argue that all of this stuff is infrastructure and common. Personally, I think this entire diagram needs a rethink in terms of what we're trying to achieve, and then to represent it in a far more accurate way.
All right,
Thanks.
Brett.
I'm moving that we revisit the issue now.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
So let's move forward, and then if we want to revisit this issue, then we will have to notify the community that the previously resolved tickets are to be reopened in the context of this new ticket. So
need a second NOV. Yeah.
Yep.
I'll second it.
Anyone?
Ruben.
Sorry.
Ruben seconds.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. All right, I'll launch the poll.
All right. I'll hand it over to you, Jane.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, I've got 10. We have 13 online. Take me off. There's a couple who have not responded.
So from the procedural perspectives, we need to notify the community at large, not just the people who are present at today's meeting. Although we have people who motion and second it, these motion and second it is to support the action of notifying the community at large to reopen the ticket. It's not about reopening the ticket, just to be sure or to be clear.
Okay.
Brett?
Sorry, got stuck.
True. I mean, I can see it.
Okay.
If I
Didn't put my vote in.
All right. So then the co-chairs of the work group will then work through the process of notifying the community at large to vote to make a decision on reopening of the tickets.
Okay.
I'm doing something that Charlie wanted to put them. Yeah.
Okay. So Brett numbers. I had 10 in the whole plus your.
Yeah, I've got two in total, two affirmative, 7
abstain.
negative. Yeah, 2 negative and 2 abstain.
Yep.
7 negative. 2 affirmative, 7 negative, and 2 abstain.
So I'm confused then. We were motioning to revisit it, and
Yep.
it sounds like that was not passed then.
Failed.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
in
we're
that
not
case, then,
reopening.
in that case, that motions for actions to reach out to the community to reopen the ticket is defeated.
Yes.
So that means that at this level, the members who are present didn't support the motion to reach out to the community at large to reopen the ticket.
Okay. So in that case, then the issue needs to be removed. I go back to the actual.
So that's it, right?
We're done.
I think what Jane's asking and is that, does that mean that for this ticket, which would require a reopen, the not persuasive with the reference to the fact that this was a revisit, but that we update that to say that the revisit was not passed? Is that how that gets recorded in JIRA?
No, I think when I clarify what this motion is about, because the reopening of the ticket needs to reach out to a broader community as per decision making and governance guidance. The voting we have done here is to vote for the co-chairs to reach out to the community at large
Stephen, we've got an open issue, and the open issue is the revisit. So we need to close the open issue on the revisit. That's what we're checking, is what that looks like in JIRA. We can probably take that offline and double check the JIRA workflow process.
Because I think we have notified everyone according to the requirements already that this was a revisit vote today.
We have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sent out
And
an
the-
email and a Zulip announcement and notified it on the JIRA, covered my bases.
Okay, my mistake in that case, then if we have already notified the community at large, then this voting is needs to be slated to be not reopening the tickets that was being previously resolved.
So we'll work out what to do, because is that just like a closure of the ticket at that point?
Look, let's take that offline
Yeah, we'll
so
take
that we don't consume FHIR Work Group time through that administrative thing, and let people get onto the other tickets for AU base.
Sounds good.
Yep. Okay. Okay. So our next item is this one. Consider creating an AU recorded sex or gender source code system and value set and extensibility binding it to RST source. Okay, this is Ruben's ticket. Who wants to talk to it?
Yep, I'll speak to it. So we discussed this in the last meeting, where I had an action to arrange a meeting with Brett, Andy, and Angus to discuss Andy, Brett, and Angus's concerns. We held that meeting last week, and the outcome of the meeting is what's recorded in the updated resolution. It's persuasive with MOD because originally PCA was proposed and that's been taken out, and originally the APRA Practitioner Information Exchange was suggested when that should be just APRA. We also agreed that Andy would submit a separate ticket seeking guidance in relation to use of source and source document for future versions of AU base. And we will go with the suggested changes in the disposition as stated. Happy to take questions.
Any questions? If not, can I have a motion? Oh no, sorry, Tanya.
Danielle.
How many source systems do you think we'll have that have the code Australian Healthcare Identifier Service in them? If we do one for recorded sex or gender source, kind of extrapolating across the other things we might want sources of, what do you think the kind of figure that we'll end up with is? And if that makes it, because I guess I'm concerned about that. We're going to have multiple
Sorry, are
codes
you
doing that.
multiple codes doing what exactly?
So we've got to create an AU recorded sex or gender source code system,
Yep.
which includes a code for healthcare identifier service. So if we
Yes.
ever want another source for some other element, I have to create another code system. And if it
No.
comes from the healthcare identifier service, I need to create a code in there because this code system is only for recorded sex or gender source.
This
And
code
that's
system
what
is only
worries me.
it's only for recorded sex or gender source. Yes.
Yeah,
So
so if I want to
don't-
actually get not recorded sex or gender, but I want to get something else, and it comes from the Australian Healthcare Identifier Service as the source system, I need to create another code system and have the same and put Australian Healthcare Identifier Service code in it.
I don't know. One hasn't come up so far. This is the first one, so I'd be wildly speculating on additional use cases like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that bit concerns me that we're making it. I don't think like identifying a source system as Australian Healthcare Identifier Service, I'm okay with that. Saying that the code system itself has to be semantically tied to the specific concept of recorded sex or gender source worries me. That I don't agree with.
Except we don't have a requirement for anything else right now. So I don't think we can go broader because we wouldn't know where it would end up getting used or
But you've
misused.
identified one, it just doesn't prevent its use somewhere else. You're not advocating its use somewhere else. We're identifying a concept of a system that is a source of a record. And in this case, we're going to bind it to this element.
Yep.
And if you make it specific to this, it can't be used anywhere else. So that's prohibiting any future use.
That's
If you make
exactly
it
what I'm doing quite deliberately.
non-specific, then it could be used somewhere else when and if we decide determine another spot.
There's a counter
Okay.
argument to that it could get misused for other reasons, and I don't want to open it up to that. In the future, if additional use cases for concepts like this get created, we'd have to consider it on its merits, and then as part of that, consider whether we want a generalized concept or not. The fact that we haven't needed one up until now suggests to me that there may not actually be other use cases for it.
Isn't this just ultimately a namespace issue? Do we happen to call this the recorded sex or gender source code system? And that is the then implied governance rule, but there is nothing that constrains it. You could go and pick up that code system and use it for whatever purpose you wanted. It seems that if in future we do come up with another need for it, it could change the whole basis of what this code system may be and how it's governed. So I don't know how we kind of extrapolate from this use to other uses. I know you said source kind of systems for stuff.
Well, source systems specifically for sex or gender information.
Oh, I know that's what we're talking about here.
Yes,
But in
that's what
terms
we're
of
talking about
Danielle's
here.
kind of extrapolation, couldn't we give this a broader mandate to say source systems for kind of things? But I don't know how then we would govern it in the short term and make decisions about it. it would be far easier if we had 2, 3 concrete uses, and then be easier to make a decision around a broader approach. But without those, I don't know how we can just extrapolate for unknown future use.
Yeah, that's my argument as well. We'd need to understand those requirements.
It's kind of like saying, do you never get any other data out of the APRA system? Do you only ever get RSG? Pretty sure, although we haven't profiled it, that you can and do get other data out of that API. The same with the healthcare identifier service. You do get other stuff out of there beyond RSG. I know we're not profiling for it, but it is we already know these systems do and can, and in practice, frequently every day provide other data. So I guess that's what worries me. I guess the argument of we've not profiled it yet versus we know these systems are doing it right now. I think we haven't profiled it yet is just we've not gotten to it.
They may be doing that, but I mean, where exactly would you use a concept like this in a general sense? RSG.source is specifically to capture things like that. I'm not sure we've got placeholders like similar to that for other use cases.
So there's provenance, there's a couple of other places depending on how you're
But,
modeling,
you
where
know,
you're actually getting your information from, including things around lists.
Well, if provenance is the use case, then I think a lot more work needs to be done on how we're going to use provenance, which will go way beyond the scope of this tracker item.
I guess I'm just worried, and I am worried that we'll start here and then our next use case will require a backwards incompatible change when we could have set it up now. Or a duplication.
Well, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be backwards compatible, because if we did create a more generalized code system based on requirements, then we would simply retire either the whole code system or specific concepts and change the value set.
Yeah. That's what we would do when we get to it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, then. In that case,
So I'm going to take the vote then.
yeah, I'll propose we
the
accept
motion.
the disposition. Thanks, Jane.
Thanks, Ruben. Can I have a second?
Maybe a second.
Send me. Yeah, I've got 9 responses.
I just realized Andy's background. That's great.
Happy to share.
I think I prefer the stacks of paper, Andy.
Okay, that's a good question. What's prompted the change in the background? Do we have a technological evolution that's happened recently?
Right, we found the 1960s.
Awesome.
No, not 1960s. And the brother still produces truckloads of faxes for use worldwide and also in Australia as well. So it's still very much current.
He's current, 1960s current.
Okay, I think we finished. So we have 1 abstain, 3 affirmative, 6 negative, which means we have not passed.
Sorry,
right,
Jane,
then.
can you repeat the numbers again?
1 abstain. Oh, can I share? 1 abstain, 3 approved, and 6 negative.
Okay, motion defeated. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess I'll have to come back with a different disposition unless anyone wants to propose one right now.
Okay, so to clarify my negative, in terms of the primary bullet points, and there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I liked the bottom 4. The first one, I think I've articulated my point that I think this shouldn't be restricted to the particular that particular element in the extension as a code system. That was my one.
Can I check, Danielle, if you would be supportive of a more generalized code system in bullet 1 and keep
Yes,
everything
I
else the
would.
same?
Yes, I would.
All right.
Can we also just query the other people who voted negative as well?
Yeah, sure.
Landon, I voted negative pretty much because for the same reasons as Danielle, I would like a more generic code system. Thanks.
Thanks, Landon. Anyone
Brett?
else?
You're on mute, Brett, if you're speaking. Okay, can't speak right now.
Can you
Any
put it
other
in the
negative?
chat, Brett, so that we
Yeah.
can put that into the minutes?
Yep. Or do we want another motion with that first point?
Yeah,
to
I'm
become
willing to
generic?
make another motion that we amend the disposition to create a generic, I'm not sure what you'd want to call it, Danielle. We can take that offline. A generalized code system
Well, I think
with those concepts.
yeah, we can take it offline. I assume it'll be something like it's basically source system. In this case, it's for a source of recorded sex or gender, but it might
Yeah.
be the source of other information.
Okay. And retain the rest of the disposition. That's my motion.
Okay, so can I get a second? Or although Brett is in chat saying, I think it should be examined further for broader context and discussed further.
I'm happy to second the motion with that amendment.
Okay.
Thanks, Danielle.
Okay, I will. Okay. I think we're done. So we have 2 abstain, 1 negative, and 8 affirmative. So motion has been passed.
Thank you. I will take an action to do the PR for these changes and provide them to the editors. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruben. Okay. Next item. Okay. Okay, so these are e-requesting items now. So we have, our first one is communication request reason copy to reason description. I assume it's supposed to be TOO specific. Who wants to talk to this one? I know it was Brett's item, although he's still unable to speak. Brett?
I think I can. So this one is, let me get this right. Sorry, just checking the ticket. What ticket number is that one? The 51889. Yep. So that, yeah, so that's actually set now. There's 3 tickets there with reworded content. So you'll see in the agenda, there's reworded content there that's been discussed on those. So that's actually the 3 tickets are covering the 3 terms. And Yeah, so there's just some adjustment to the words there that was agreed. So it's more just checking that that is making sense to everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, are those proposed changes all of this now, including the code and display and description?
Yes.
I don't think the ticket says that, does it? The resolution of the ticket?
That's a good question.
To support general usage of this code system, or I say the mod is grammar fixed to non-specific recipient A request for communication to be
Yeah, I think
to recipients.
I think that was the original disposition before the discussion. So I think we'll have to. I think this disposition would be to accept the specific code display and description as stated.
This is a bit more complex now, given we're going to look to use those codes for category, communication request category now, rather than reason. So if we are going to make these changes, we may be just doing the original that you had in the about just updating the description, because we're going to end up with duplicates of these, which may not be a problem. We can just decommission this one in the future, but
Danielle.
So, just to understand, because I think that could still progress in this meeting. The original thing was a communication request reason with these concepts, but you still have the same kind of need for these concepts in e-requesting, but the place to use them is communication request category. And so what would suit e-requesting was if this was a communication request category code system rather than a reason.
yes.
I certainly don't have an objection to that. That falls, I think that part of the discussion we'd had in the last FHIR Work Group was about how these were kind of categorizing the communication request, even though they were being used in the request reason element. So I don't have an objection to that change.
Yeah, so that's we went through with co-chairs yesterday, and that's what we agreed to have a code system that looks nearly exactly like this for category. The only stickler on that though is it hasn't been through TDG vote yet, but that is our intent of where we want to take it.
Oh, okay. So it's not. Okay, so it's not actually, I guess, ready to say, please change
No.
this to category. Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But that's where we're going, and that's where hopefully we'll end up. But yes, we don't have a vote to say that that's the outcome.
Then do we postpone this to a later base meeting? Yeah.
Yeah, that's my
what
preference.
suggest.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we'll.
Yeah, can we just note then that that's the intent, and yeah, as the minutes of this, that's what we're looking to do. So, and then I'll come back when we've got the outcome.
Yep. Okay. You've got that, Brett.
Yep, that's good.
Okay. All right. We'll move on then to our final item, which is guidance for coverage, which again is Michael.
Oh, so this is mine. Okay, so we've got coverage, AU-based coverage, and we have a payer, which is mandatory, so one-to-many. But there's currently no guidance on how that should be populated across the different payment types. I think I've noted there too that noting that in R5 pay is replaced by two different elements, insurer and payment by, and kind of separates the insurance from self-pay parties to allow omission when details are not known or required. So in e-requesting, we've identified the need for the clarification on how to populate payer when we pay is concession or pay. And we're kind of looking for that guidance because we think it applies more broadly than e-requesting when a coverage profile or resource is used. We'd like some consistency there. So we're looking for either some guidance or examples on how payer would be populated for common Australian coverage types, so we can remove any ambiguity. And that's for things like Services Australia. And like I think we've got an example in there at the moment for DVA, but we don't have anything for Services Australia or other suggestions. So see you have a draft resolution there. So you're acknowledging that it is considered for future use. Yep.
We are. So if you're happy with that resolution, that it will be developed.
The only problem with that is that we will start implementing coverage and e-requesting, and it will be up to us then to provide any guidance on how it's used in e-requesting if we want some consistency. So that's why we were kind of pushing it back to FHIR Work Group so that we would get consistency rather than have to make it up ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Daniel.
So with my kind of FHIR Work Group hat on, looking after AU base, so that's the approach we've kind of taken in the past for that is while the development for this release of AU base is done and we're about in publication mode now, I think where there are specific questions as you go through, they can be raised on FHIR Work Group agendas and we can discuss the depending on whether you're raising about would this work, what do you think about this approach, and have that considered by the wider FHIR Work Group. And I think that would be how, and if we minute that as part of the agreements of what we've considered, would eventually into the next release of AU base turn into a set of consistent guidance.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's not my preferred option, but yes, that will work.
I don't have a motion, please.
I would have preferred a motion that we would make a change now, so I'm not going to motion for consider for future use.
Okay, I'm happy to motion then that we consider for future use adding into AU base the specific guidance around each of the, hang on, where is it? Sorry, I'm just trying to read the issue. Okay, so yeah, I'm happy to motion consider for future use that we think this guidance is relevant for AU base, but the developments needed on how to represent the specific payers that are relevant. Yeah, that's my motion.
Thanks, Danielle. Do I have a seconder on that one? Or an alternative motion?
I'll second, Joshi.
Let's do so. Okay. Or do I poll? Okay, if everyone's finished, I have 10 responses. Okay, so we have 3 abstain, 1 negative, and 6 affirmative. So motion passed. We will consider for future use, and happy, Michael, for you to add that to a upcoming agenda discussion for FHIR Work Group.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. We did it, apart from those few communication request ones. We have got through them.
Can I just ask on that communication request one then about timing? So we have the next e-requesting TDG meeting tomorrow. It's not on the agenda for that meeting. So the earliest it would be is the following one. How does that impact publication of AU base?
Can we go look at the FHIR calendar? If you're not logged in, Jane, you won't be able to see it.
No, sorry.
Brett, do you want to show the FHIR calendar, and we can look at the timings and whether or not that's, because one thing, if it was the next meeting, is this something that would be 6 weeks later if we're still making a normative change? I don't know if that, or maybe it'd be 5 weeks actually. I don't know if that actually works. It would miss the, okay, so hang on. Next one is, so if it's on the 6th of November.
Yeah, it's scheduled for the 6th of November.
All right, can we then look at the next month, Brett? Yeah, I think, and then we would have the FHIR Work Group, so which we missed that one. Oh no, because we would then 19th, that would be like the last, I think that is like the last possible agreement, because then we would need to lock it down for Connectathon and testing all of that content. So I think, okay, personally, I think that still works. I don't know. Brett, is that still with your HL7AU publication manager hat on? Okay.
Yeah, that's good, because we can prep it all up anyway, and then it's just a decision point. Then we can decide, if it's in or out, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's definitely on the agenda for the 6th of November for requesting. So yeah, if that works, then we
Yeah,
can.
and I think that's basically the last opportunity. Whatever happens to that code system has to happen in that 19th FHIR Work Group call.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Shall I reshare?
I think if you go to the right, oh no, you've already got it. Okay. If you go back to the home page that you were on the right, so like things that have just been updated. So right up to the top on the FHIR Work Group. Oh, well, you've got it. Cool. I've got a few things for next agenda, but I'll only get to those if there's like nothing else that people want to go through.
Okay, does anybody else have anything they'd like to bring up, please? Nope, sounds like it's yours, Danielle.
So for the next FHIR Work Group, and I'll send through the JIRA number, AU patient summary is going to AFMM1, we hope. That's on the agenda for the next call. So after the TDG ratifies that, we'll bring it to the FHIR Work Group. So I want to put that on the agenda for the next call. and also citing the variance statement. I don't think we've done that for patient summary yet, but we should do that. And then possibly, I might even squeak in a nib, because I'm aware that where patient summary wants to take advantage of an early ballot cycle next year in like February, I think I've been having discussions and have heard things like that in order to satisfy that with the Christmas shutdown that they want to do, which seems reasonable, voter sign up early. So to help all of that process through, we need the nib through. So I think I'd try to see if I can get all of that teed up to just cross, all the T's for the governance in the next call. They're the main items that I want to add through around governance. Yeah, actually, I'm just trying to think. I think there's something else, but I've forgotten what it is. No, I've got nothing.
Okay. Thanks, Daniel. Okay, if no one else has anything, then we have our next meeting on the 5th of November. So I will call to a close. Thank you everyone for joining. We will see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Jan.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We did not record this meeting, did we? Damn it.